I love the fact that you a couple of weeks ago were giving me a hard time because I had a little bit of panic as the 3, 2, 1 came down, and today you're literally. I wish we were recording. You went
I wish
from
we
all
had
right,
been
I'm ready
recording
to.
that.
Your eyes literally like got so big. You're like, wait. It was so good.
Can we reenact that?
Sure.
Okay, so the clock, it counts down
Mind
from
you,
five.
we are an audio based podcast with some
Yes.
video components. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere the audio side's only, definitely head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/, I believe it's the Best Friend Podcast,
Yes,
to
it's
see
Best Friend Podcast.
yes, to see this because we are going to post this clip in its entirety.
My gosh. Okay, so the
Okay.
clock counts
So
down
I push
from
record.
5.
Yeah.
Clock counts down from 5. It hits 3, and I go, wait, what's our cold open? And then it hit 0, and Ruben started laughing at me.
Yes.
Because he had texted me. He was like, this should be our cold open. And I did not remember it at all.
You know, it doesn't really make for good podcast when we tell people that we plan all this in advance.
Well, how well could we have planned it if I can't remember it?
To be fair, you don't remember much of what I say.
Well, hey, 3 concussions, man.
Yeah.
I've got a good excuse. I did start a new medication this week, which I'm excited about.
Well, we can talk about that on next week's episode because we are going
That
to
is
talk about your
true.
health problems. So
Yeah, we should talk about
all
that next
all
week.
12 of them.
All 12.
But hey, I do want to start off by saying we have some feedback from good old faithful. He, if you remember from last week, we have a listener, and the reason why I'm not saying his name is because
we have a listener.
We have
I'm
a
glad
listener.
we got one.
It's a victory. We have a listener who last week we called him good old faithful, and then we put in his first name, and he respectfully asked us, and I want to honor his request, not to mention his first name and to call him by his social media name, which is Chaos Reaper.
That's smart. Yes.
So
Totally.
so I apologize to good old faithful Chaos Reaper in advance. But as I was doing some research here and
you
giving
should look
Moxy
up his account, by the way, guys. It's awesome. Sorry, you were
Yes.
doing some research, and
I was doing some research to get Moxy some numbers because I'm gonna tear down the fourth wall here and just say that Moxy isn't motivated by doing this podcast unless at least 17,000 people download the podcast. And so I was doing some research to see kind of where we're at, and in the process, I found out that we have a really diverse audience.
yeah,
And I wanted to break it down by the numbers. It would have been helpful if I had been logged in to look at the numbers again.
yeah, that would have been helpful. And you were laughing
what
at
if-
me for being unprepared.
No. I was laughing at you for freaking out about being unprepared. I don't, I can make this work. For the record, we finally have dethroned Brett Cooper as the highest downloaded podcast every week.
What
So-
dethroned her?
Take a guess.
Is it the dating episode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a very diverse audience here based off of listening devices and what apps they use and what kind of OS they're on, all that fun stuff. So I thought it'd be interesting for us to kind of break this down. And a lot of people are probably like, tuning out already. But you're going to want to stick around for this because I think, we need your feedback, but also I think you're going to find this kind of interesting. So
Yeah. I'm gonna find this interesting.
yeah. So what do you think that the number one podcast listening app is for You're My Best Friend?
For You're My Best Friend, I would imagine probably Apple Podcasts.
No, look at you.
Is that right?
Look at you. Yes. And it's
Wow.
actually a very wide margin.
Really?
Yeah. 87% of our listens come from Apple Podcasts.
Wow. Is it just all you and Lauren?
Yes, all 12 of our devices. We just listen to them over and over and over again.
You do have 12 devices, so,
I do. Okay,
Just
so then
you, not even Lauren.
yeah, Lauren has one. I have 11 of the 12. So then with that, this should be fairly easy to guess. what do you think the number one type of device that people listen to our podcast on?
I mean, probably a phone.
Yeah, it says mobile, so it doesn't break down whether or not it's an iPhone, Android, or like a tablet or whatever. So it's a mobile device.
Okay.
Number one operating system. What do you think it is?
iPhone. Apple.
Yeah, iOS. iOS. Yeah.
iOS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's where things get interesting. What do you think the number two device that our podcast listen to on?
That is interesting. What's our demographic here? What are we all US based at this point?
The majority of them are. 90% of our audience is US based.
Wow, we got that 10%. Heck yeah.
Yeah, and I'll break down some of these
politics last week. I did. Okay, when we were traveling last summer, I have to share this story real briefly because it's funny. We met this Scottish guy at a pub and we were getting fish and chips and he was serving. He was like, I think he was the owner of the place. But we were talking behind the counter and he asked where we were from and I said California and he was like, oh, I could tell. Actually, he was like, oh, I could tell. And
was it Craig Ferguson?
Yeah, it was. And I said, oh, it's that, because I was using a lot of vocal fry, which for those who don't know, the vocal fry is like the Kardashian. That's the affect that they use. It's like this, like that sound is vocal fry. And I speak with a lot of it, which I shouldn't, but that's a different conversation. But I said, oh, it's because we sound like the Kardashians, isn't it? And he went, who? And I said, the Kardashians. It's a American TV show. And he was like, oh, I don't really like American television, but you guys do have one of my favorite programs over there. And I said, oh, really? What is it? And he goes, your politics.
That's pretty funny. I'm glad that the rest of the world looks at American politics and just finds it entertaining.
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, I'm sure that there are people who hate hearing about it, but like our politics are definitely the most talked about in the world, I think.
Okay, so number two listening device. What do you think the number two listening device is? Maybe like a laptop or a watch. So a computer is number 4.
Really?
Yes. Interesting. But a wearable is number 2.
Really? What kind of wearables?
I don't know, and that's the problem. I don't pay for it to actually break down and tell me what wearable it is. And that's why I need to know, like, if you're listening to this on your Apple Watch or your Galaxy Watch, first of all, how? Because I can never get mine to work. Second of all, why? Because the speaker's not that great. But also, why is there 15% of you?
That's a lot.
15% of people listen to this podcast on a wearable device. And I don't know what wearable it is.
That's a lot of people. Goodness. I don't... Okay, so does it have to be downloaded to the device?
I don't know. I don't understand how these metrics work.
Because I feel like if I was streaming it through my phone into my headphones or my glasses or my watch or something like that would still count as a mobile stream, right?
Yeah, if it's your headphones, yes. And like your Meta Ray-Ban glasses, do they have speakers as well?
They do, yeah.
So I would assume those two would be like you need the phone in order for it to work, or you need a host device. But it's interesting. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Okay. Well, you know what? Let me do this first. Where do you like?
Also, I really don't like what you've changed your title to. I know that our audio listeners can't see this, but down below my name on the stream, which you can see on YouTube, it says Moxy Ann, creative director and host. Ruben Jay has put EP, which stands for executive producer, which why would you abbreviate, and God King.
In the words of Jeremy Boring, lowercase g, lowercase k.
Oh my gosh. He put
also
King, capital K, And I was like, hey, can you change that? So he changed it to this. I'm shaking my head.
Well, I just updated it again for you. So,
And the king, no, take that down. The king of kings?
oh gosh. You know what's funny is nobody can see that except for us.
I know. Oh, wait, really?
Yeah. So you could literally put whatever you want there, and you would be fine. Now everyone knows I'm conceited. So
they knew that already.
I know. So let's break this down. Okay. So let's do this. 1, 2, 3, 4. What do you think the top 4 countries that listen to us is? Obviously, we know what number 1 is, but what do you think? Like 2, 3, and 4. 2, 3, and 4 are.
Oh gosh, I've gotten some interesting listeners of my original music in different countries. I've seen Australia, Japan, Norway, and Italy. Is it any of those?
Australia is number 4.
Okay.
Okay. Canada is number 3.
Oh, interesting.
Surprisingly, they're tied for they're tied for 3rd place essentially. So technically, France would be 4th place if you didn't count the tie.
Ah, it's my husband's family. Got it.
There we go. Take a guess on number 2. Take a guess.
France. Are they similar? Are they close?
Nah.
No?
Mm-mm.
Is it South America?
Nope.
Is it Asia?
That would make sense.
Is it Hong Kong?
Close.
China?
China.
Really?
It's China. We have 2.3% of our audience comes from China.
Really?
Yes.
I would think that they wouldn't be allowed to listen to this considering what I've released.
It's a great song. Go listen to it.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, if you're listening to this, I'm so happy that you're listening to it. Thank you to our Chinese listeners. That's amazing. And you should listen to my song "The Egg" if you can. If you can't, I'm sorry. But yeah, thank you so much for listening.
Down with Winnie the Pooh.
No. You're gonna get us canceled again.
That's fine. Okay, so the last couple of ones. Well, can you believe that we have one listener from Azerbaijan?
I can believe that we have just one. Yes,
it's literally just one. So, but here's
one
of
my favorite YouTube channels is actually in Azerbaijan.
Oh, really? Okay, cool. And I'm glad that I pronounced that word correctly.
Yeah, Country Life Vlog.
So, Apple Podcast is number 1.
Spotify.
But the interesting thing is, no, Spotify is 3rd.
Whoa.
We get 4% of our listeners from unknown.
Really? They must be
part of our.
Does it
part of
count
our
YouTube?
No, not on this one. No.
Interesting.
So it's just and then here's the other thing too. Like, then there's also 3% of our listeners listen on an unknown listening device.
That's so weird.
And so when I read that, I actually thought to myself, who is torturing 3% of our audience with an unknown listening device? Like, it sounds like it's against their will.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
So if you are listening to this and you contribute at all to either the unknown sections of this, please let us know. Like, what do you listen to us on? And if you're part of that wearables, we also want to know what you listen to us on.
Yeah, seriously. You can, there's a couple different ways. If you're on Spotify, they have this new comment feature now that's really cool. We've been getting a couple comments every week. Shout out to Chaos Reaper and Melody Sparks. She left us a comment too. But
good old faithful Melody Sparks.
we have to have a different nickname.
Old Glory?
Sparky.
Melody Sparks? Spark plugs.
No, but like if you're listening on Spotify, drop a comment. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, drop a comment. You can send us an email, officialbestfriendshow@gmail.com. Also,
did you almost say official Ben Shapiro?
No, I said official Ben Friend Show. I'm just really invested in Ben getting some friends finally. No, but send us an email at officialbestfriendshow, and especially send us an email if you know anything at if you know anything about how these metrics are calibrated, send us an email and we will honestly interview you, because I have no idea how this works and I feel like we're highly underqualified to be running a podcast.
Do you know that we have negative 1% of listeners from Tarzania?
Tarzania.
Oh, sorry.
Tarzania?
Tanzania.
Interesting.
How do we have negative listeners there?
That they hate us. They've told the government, stop streaming in this country.
They go by and they kill like one dedicated stream every week from somebody listening in a different country.
It could be, some of these could be coming from music. Some of them could be coming from your following. Some of these, I hear the countries, I think they might actually be coming from my uncle, weirdly. Yeah, because there's a huge, and you should go back in the archives and listen to the episode with Mark Moore of Christafari. That is actually my uncle. That was a great episode. But I've had people throughout the years try to friend me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram, because they find out that I'm one of his relatives. And they want to like connect with one of Mark Moore's relatives. It's weird. It has nothing to do with me. But sometimes when I hear like these South American countries or these African countries, I'm like, obviously it could be coming from like a love for music or a following of us, but you mostly post about American politics, and I don't know why that would be interesting for someone in Tanzania or like.
I have one guy in Scotland that likes to hear what I have to say.
Is it the same guy who got us fish and chips?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, I just found this really interesting that we had these unknowns and wearables. So please give us some feedback. We'd love to hear from you. But most importantly, if you are going to listen to this podcast, do us a favor and watch it first over at youtube.com/multimedia mouth, because we are semi-monetized there, making some money, and it helps kind of support what we're doing here. But also we have dedicated that if we make any money off this podcast while the wildfires in Los Angeles are still going on, that we're going to donate all those proceeds. So far we're up to about 36 cents. And I'm not joking about that. 36 cents in ad revenue from our podcast so far. But if you want to donate directly, obviously, we're going to have organizations and links down in the bottom in the description of this podcast to support just some of the wildfire relief funds and organizations that are just doing an incredible job out in LA, keeping people afloat while just the city literally burns around them. Yeah,
definitely. We're so thankful to you guys for listening. If you've made it this far into the episode already, I hope you like it so far. This seems...
We're trying!
Both interesting and boring. But we hope that you guys appreciate it. Like I said, if you know anything about these metrics, send us an email at officialbestfriendshow@gmail.com. Also, feel free to drop a comment on our Instagram page. Any post, honestly. Let us know how you listen to the show, because we're real curious if you're listening to it on your watch while you're on a run, or if you're listening to it on your Meta glasses somehow, and that's calibrating as... like a wearable listen. I don't know what a wearable counts as. Like how is that being, everything's Bluetooth. How is it being counted differently from a mobile device? This doesn't make any sense.
I wonder if it has to be like a cellular enabled like watch.
Possibly. I mean, I know that like my watch isn't cellular enabled, and I can download onto my watch. And when I, like, probably if I did that, it would constitute a wearable device. So maybe some people are doing that, but that's like a lot of forethought. I do not think things through that far in advance unless I'm going on a plane, honestly.
Yeah, that's usually when I start downloading stuff off of Netflix.
Yeah. I'm happy to hear that Spotify isn't our number one. I mean, much as I should be against the streaming on Spotify and Apple and all of the things, and I should be going independent as a musician, I am not, because it's just so easy, and there's just like unlimited access to things. So I hate that I have Spotify, but also I don't want to have to struggle to find music anytime I need to find a song that I need to learn for a gig. So, but I'm at the same time, I'm happy that that's not like our primary way that people are listening to us, because I don't want to support Spotify like explicitly.
Yeah, and Spotify is changing too, and I think we can talk about that some other time. We'll talk about that some other time. Yeah, that's not important. We'll be back with our intro
right after this.
Well, the intro is going to play, and then we'll be back. You okay?
Is that our intro?
No.
following is a podcast about life,
Apparently.
I can't not listen to music.
friendship, and tacos.
Let me tell you this, dropping a taco is a national emergency.
This is You're My Best Friend. Now here are your hosts, Moxy and Ruben Jay.
Welcome to You're My Best Friend, a podcast apparently about analytics, tacos, and friendships. My name is Ruben Jay. I forgot who I was for a second.
Wow,
we
are
are.
you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's been a long day, like a good long day for people who don't know. We are recording this on Monday, January 20th, which is Inauguration Day here in the States. So,
Or as I called it the other night, Inauguration Day.
how many glasses of wine in were you when you called it Inauguration Day?
Absolutely zero, Ruben.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So part of the early part of my day was covering all things presidential, and then having my day job, and then now I'm here recording late into the evening. Again, my name is Ruben Jay.
And I'm Moxy M.
And Moxy, we got an interesting conversation to have today, and
We do, yeah.
I think people are going to enjoy it, or
think
they've
so,
tuned
too.
out with all the analytics.
That is also possible. We're not talking about the election again. Although I do want to say that I got major Carmen Sandiego vibes from Melania's hat.
See, I got Michael Jackson, Smooth
Yes.
Criminal.
Brad was trying to place who it was, and I was like, Sia? And
That's funny.
yeah, Jim Carrey wins, though. I think Jim Carrey wins.
Yeah, and then the hat, that was, or not the hat, the mask. The hat's at a burger place out here in Los Angeles. You can tell where my head is. Busy day to day. So we're going to talk about something that's actually really important. I think
Yes,
this is
we
going to be
are.
the most instrumental podcast that we've put out in a while. And so you better share it. You better like it. You better comment. You better subscribe. You better do all that stuff, or Moxy is going to not release music ever again.
Preach. That might already happen, but
What?
probably not.
That's news to me. So this episode in our doc, where we planned out kind of what we were going to do this season, was titled "Have You Met Ted?"
Have you met Ted?
Which, if you are a How I Met Your Mother fan, you know that that's Barney's line to introduce Ted to women, and specifically Robin.
Hi, have you met Ted?
And this conversation is going to be when I don't remember when, but at some point in Ted and Victoria dating, Victoria gave Ted an ultimatum and basically said, you cannot be friends with Robin and also date / I think marry me. So I think it was towards the end.
Also, before we go any further, I just have to say we're going to be discussing deep storylines of How I Met Your Mother and Friends. So if you have not seen all of those shows in their entirety, and or you are not interested in getting spoilers on those show plot lines, I would stop listening right here, because we are going to be talking about some stuff in later episodes.
Shows that have been out for almost 20 years now.
I didn't finish Friends until 2019, so it's up to you. Listen at your own risk at this point.
I should put like a giant flashing spoiler alert, spoiler alert,
Yeah.
spoiler alert,
Do it, yeah.
right where my hands are. So basically, Ted and Victoria dated for a little bit in one of the earlier seasons, and then they ran into each other again later on, and I think they ran into together again and almost got married. Victoria basically told Ted that she couldn't marry him if he still had Robin in his life. Robin is Ted's longtime love interest, and they dated at one point, and he actually cheated on Victoria with Robin at one point. And then the show ends with Ted going back to Robin. And complete side note, I just watched a video on the recently deceased then resurrected TikTok about how I Met Your Mother really should be called How I Met Robin, because the entire like 10 seasons is building up to this crescendo where the main character who's telling his kids about how he met his mother ended up not with their mother.
How he met his mother?
No, the kid's mother, the kids that he's talking to.
Was he adopted? Was Ted adopted?
I don't know. I don't know what happened here. So the reason why, and so I know that also happened in Friends, and I don't remember the details of this. So Moxy, take over at this point about what happened in Friends.
Okay, literally, I gotta say that ending of How I Met Your Mother made me so mad. We hardcore binged that show so that we could finish it by the time we all graduated college and Carly left to go back home. My old roommate Carly, and I was like watching the end of that episode in the car on the way to LAX, and it just annoyed me so much. Like, yeah, it's great. I'm glad they got their happy ending, but like, really, we didn't have to go through all that. That's such a cop out, you know? Anyway, so Friends.
We can talk about that some other time, but I just want to say I loved it. Personally.
Okay. It's been a good 5 years since I've seen How I Met Your Mother, if not longer. So, you know, I'm not the most qualified. I probably should watch it again. It's like the one show that I just watched once and I've never gone back to. I think because so much of it is context. Like Friends, you can go back and watch a standalone. New Girl, you can go back and watch a standalone. I've rewatched, like I just rewatched Squid Game. I just rewatched, what did I watch? The Tudors last year. Like stuff like that. But How I Met Your Mother is it's a combination of like so deep humor and long-winded that I just have never gone back to it. Because you can't just watch one. You'll get dropped into the middle of it and you'll forget everything that happened. Which makes it good TV, but also it makes it hard to rewatch. Okay, so anyway, switching gears here to a slightly similar sitcom, but different in so many ways. We're talking Friends as well, and if you are familiar with I don't remember what season it is. Do you remember?
No, I don't.
Wow, you've seen that show like 20 times.
I don't memorize. Hey, Lauren, when did Ross and Emily have that thing where they couldn't date?
Like
what season was that?
5, right?
She doesn't know. She just said what? When Emily told Ross that he couldn't be friends with Rachel anymore. Season 4?
Ooh, I was close.
Season 4 and 5. Why am I yelling into the microphone?
I don't know. Stop yelling. It hurts. Anyway, so if you're not familiar with Friends, Ross and Rachel are the two like main protagonists who end up eventually getting together. So Ross
is Ross really a protagonist?
Yeah, I think so. You don't think so?
I mean, I don't know if anyone in that show would be. I don't know if protagonist is the word that I would use for any of them. Although, maybe except for like Chandler.
Maybe. He's one of the main characters. He falls in love with this girl named Emily. They have a rushed wedding. I don't remember why. And they are up at the altar, and Ross and Rachel have had this whole thing back and forth for much of the show's history. And it's kind of like a will they, won't they throughout the entire preceding 4 episodes or 4 seasons. And then Rachel shows up in England where Ross and Emily are getting married, and Ross accidentally says Rachel's name at the altar instead of Emily.
I, Ross, take the Rachel.
Oh.
I mean, Emily.
I take the Emily. No, yeah, it's bad. It hurts. I can't watch that episode. But he says Emily's name, and she like leaves him.
Rachel.
Or Rachel. Sorry. I'm just as bad as Ross. He says Rachel's name, and then there's whole drama ensues with Emily. Emily eventually agrees to come back. She agrees to get back together with him, and they agree to give it a shot again. At this point, they're legally married. They got married. They went through with it. She left. She came back. They're married, and she says she's willing to give it another shot. However, Ross can never see Rachel again. And Ross agrees to this without telling Rachel, and then he's super conflicted on it. There's a couple of episodes where he's just agonizing over this. And he eventually, I forgot how it ends. Does he agree to it, or does he
No.
say no? I didn't
He ends
think
up
so.
saying no. Yeah, he ends up
Yeah.
ultimately. Well, I think he tells Rachel at some point what's going on, and Rachel kind of understands, and then he tells Emily that he couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
And mind you, this is after Ross and Rachel dated.
Yeah. They've dated, they've slept together, they've had a whole thing, they dated for a long time before then. And it was really messy. It was super messy. But that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about ultimatums, and should your partner be able to call it quits on a friendship for you? Should they be able to say, "Hey, I need you to cut it off with this person"? And
Yeah, so that's the $1 million question is should your partner be able to say, "Hey, your friendship with this person." Now, mind you, the particular like examples that we're using are kind of bad examples because they're both ex girlfriends.
Yeah.
Essentially, and so I'm going to eliminate that particular portion of it because I think at that point, like if Lauren asked me not to speak to my ex ever again, like I'd be a fool not to honor that,
Well, and you'd be like, "I'm already not speaking to my ex ever again."
Yes, exactly. I mean, they're dead, but it doesn't really matter. They're not dead. It's fine. I think. I don't know. That got dark.
That's good that you don't know.
So the question here is if your partner tells you to cut off a friend for whatever reason.
Even if they ask you to do it, no questions asked. Like if they ask and they don't give you a reason.
Yeah. Number one, will you do it? And number two, do they have the right to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And so I know a lot of people are going to say that your partner does not have the right to do that. I know some people will say that they do. Moxy, where do you stand? If Brad told you right now that you can never talk to, what was that guy's name that we used to randomly burst out?
Matt?
No, not him. But sure, let's go with him.
Randomly burst out. What does that mean?
Remember that one time? No, that one time that we were on a live stream and I kept saying his name over and over again, thinking that I had muted myself, but I wasn't muted, and totally outed you on some like.
Oh, was it Ryan?
Yeah.
Okay, that kind of doesn't count because I did have a crush on Ryan and we went on a date.
Okay. Well, okay. Let's just use Melody as an example. If Brad was like, "Hey, you can never talk to Melody ever again,"
that's tough. Okay, so here's my take on it. If you are married, and it depends on your marriage, because some people are married as a legal for tax reasons marriage, and some people are married on and some people are married on a very faith-based, like sacred contract marriage. So marriage means different things for different people. So that's already a complication here. It depends on your marriage. And it also depends if you are or aren't married. If you aren't married, is it a serious relationship? Like,
I think for the sake of conversation, let's go both routes on that one because we have both examples. We have, Victoria and Ted who were engaged, and Ross and Emily who were technically married.
Yeah. Yeah. So in Ross and Emily's case, I think that's definitely valid. I mean, they lived right across the hall from each other at that point, right? Or no, he lived across the street, but he was very close. Yeah, he was super close by. They saw each other all the time. At that point, Emily was in England. She hadn't come back yet. She was like, Rachel was seeing Ross more than Emily, his wife, was seeing Ross.
Yeah.
And they had dated. I mean, if it's somebody who, if I'm up at the altar and my husband says some other chick's name, no, I'm sorry. He's never seeing me again, number one. That was kind of Emily's first mistake. But he's also never seeing that person again. So, in my opinion, with my beliefs and with my perspective on marriage and like what I personally have vowed to do, I respect my husband. I respect his wishes. And if my husband says to me, "Hey, I don't want you to be friends with this person anymore, and here are the reasons why," and I do or do not. I mean, we've had this conversation before. Like, we've had this conversation about people, and I've said, "Why do you feel this way? Why is this something that you want?"
Who were the people?
I'm not disclosing that.
And why was it me?
We have had this conversation before, but he is not. I appreciate Brad on so many levels because he always allows me to be free, and he's not really the type of person to be like, I'm the man of the house and I'm putting my foot down. You are not to speak to this person ever again. Like he wouldn't do that to me.
I'm going for the milk.
If he did, I would respect it, and I have told him, hey, just so you know, you have final say on this. If at some point you want to say like, hey, you're done with this person, I have to respect it. That's what I've chosen for myself. But we always have a conversation about it when something like that happens, and he'll give me his reasons, and I'll say, okay, that's valid, or I'll say, I don't think that's the case, and here's why, and we have a conversation about it. Ultimately, though, I do think that if it's a marriage, if this is somebody that you have vowed the rest of your life to, if this is a relationship that's serious enough for you to give up your family, to give up your home, to give up, so many different things, then yeah, you should be willing to give up another person who's not part of your marriage, because ultimately you need to value your marriage above all else except for your relationship with God. And
I think that one of the other things too is like, if you're the person on the other side of that, if you're the friend who's being cut off, it's gonna suck because it's the end of a friendship, or at least in that iteration, and there's probably always potential for that to be reconciled down the road once things mend and whatever the core reason is done. But the one thing I would say is that if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you should definitely do so, because we have this really cool piece of content that's coming out this week where I review Moxy's review of the Sabrina Carpenter Dunkin' Donuts drink, and you need to subscribe. How is that
related to what we're talking about?
It's a commercial. Just play along. Just play along.
Okay.
You capture. Let me just explain how podcasting works. You capture the person's attendant. You capture the audience's attention.
You capture their flight attendant.
You capture their attention.
This sounds illegal.
And then you put an ad. You put an ad in between, and they don't realize.
How have you been podcasting all these years? Is this why all those flight attendants are missing?
Remember when I burned the thing in the kitchen?
When you burned papers in my kitchen? Yes, of course I remember that.
It may or may not be related to the flight attendants who have gone missing. Okay. For legal purposes, that is a joke. Legal disclaimer, that is a joke.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, make sure you subscribe, because that piece of content, I made an executive decision, by the way, Moxy, and I never talked to you about this. We do have a thing where every so often we're going to do what's called a Street Taco episode, where it's going to be a more condensed version of the podcast. And that's going to be a YouTube exclusive over at multimediamouth.com, or sorry, youtube.com/multimediamouth. But if you're that person on the other side of that friendship, when that person tells you, hey, my spouse, my partner has told me that they would like for us to put a pause in our friendship until further notice, or maybe forever, the one thing that you need to try not to do is ask why. Because that right there,
so uncomfortable.
I know, it's uncomfortable for everyone involved. It's a hard subject to begin with, because it's like, again, depending what the reasoning is, it's not something that's maybe wanted but maybe needed. But the last thing you want to do is potentially put a permanent damage into the friendship, to the point where it's like, oh, like I'm asking you to do this because it's what's best for my marriage right now, and you are too short-sighted to understand that, and you're going to try to convince me to talk my husband or my wife out of it.
I think if I were cutting someone off like that, and if I was having that conversation with that person and they either questioned the heck out of me or fought me on it, that would actually confirm to me, oh, this is why my husband doesn't want me talking to this person. Yeah,
for sure. So this is gonna be boring radio, boring podcasting, boring talk show, but I agree. I think that once there is a marriage license and certificate signed, sealed, and delivered, you need to respect
yours. Not
you.
yours. No.
Oh God.
We just did an episode about this.
Should I edit that part out?
No.
No, because it's funny. What was I saying?
You were saying once there's a marriage certificate signed, sealed, delivered. Should I sing it again?
No, please don't. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not yours.
Thank God. I think that unless it's the only caveat I put there, and I think this is a similar caveat that we put in last week's descriptions or conversation as well, is unless it's for controlling abusive reasons and you can prove it. You know, if it's a thing where it's like, oh, I'm your husband and you are not going to talk to anybody ever again because, you know, I said so, and this is my way of controlling you and keeping you, you know, away from people I don't want you talking to because they might influence you to leave, or any other potential abusive reason. Other than that, like, yeah, listen to your spouse's wishes and make it happen, you know, and do your best. Now, I do think I'm curious to hear your thought on if they're just dating or like
I was gonna ask you the same thing because I think that's a whole different arena.
There's so many caveats in my opinion.
There is. I mean, how long have you been friends with this person that they want you to cut off? Why are they asking you to cut this person off? Is there something else with that person that you should maybe be pursuing instead of the person that you're pursuing? Like, there's so many different questions here. I personally would lean towards no, honestly, for that. I would say it depends on how long you've been dating this person. And I want to equate here a serious long-term committed dating relationship to a marriage in just for the purpose of this conversation, because I know several people who have either chosen not to get married or are engaged and they're not married yet, but they have the equivalent, like they have kids and they have stuff like that. Like technically that's not quote unquote married yet, but it's still on that same level. So like for the purpose of this conversation, we need to equate those two. If it is someone who you've been dating for under like a year, maybe 2 years, and they ask you to cut off a serious friendship from your life, I would lean towards no, because this is a person that you maybe haven't known for very long, that maybe doesn't know you very well. And I mean, I would definitely genuinely question that person as to their motives, because it might be a jealousy thing, it might be an insecurity thing, it might be hell, we see it a lot where people try to isolate people so that they can get them into abusive relationships. And I think that potentially is dangerous. So I would definitely lean towards no on the dating circle for this. What about you?
Yeah, so I think that there's going to be a very important caveat in this, and it's instrumental really in how you're going to decide how you're going to respect your partner at this point, at this juncture. And the big thing is to make sure that you're following us on social media, Instagram at
oh my gosh,
Best Friend Podcast, and at Moxy Music on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, all the fun stuff. I'm at the Ruben Jay across the board. That's gonna be the most important part of that. The secondary most important part of this is going to be. I promise I won't do that all the time. I really do. I really promise that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We have integrity, you know.
Yeah. We're not just gonna, shill. We're not gonna shill ourselves out to people and try to get people
We're not
to
gonna shell ourselves out to people.
That too. No, I think the real decision making portion of this is that if you want to sponsor our podcast, reach out to us via email.
Oh
I'm
my
kidding.
gosh.
I am kidding. I think that there's really one question that needs to be asked here.
Is it, are you listening to us on YouTube?
No. I already did that one.
Oh
but we'll find out after the break. Okay, I'm done. No, I think the important thing here is going to be two things. Number one, I think that honestly, honestly, if you've been dating this person for less than 2 years, you have the right to not necessarily have to listen to them just because you're dating them. Like
Yeah.
it's a different thing. But the caveat to that is also going to be, and I think the important question at this point is going to be ask why. Like, and if they can't articulate a reason why that friendship makes them uncomfortable, that friendship is unsafe, or an actual reason why they don't want you talking to that person other than because I said so, then I think you have every right to say respectful. And again, you have to have this conversation respectfully is I don't agree. And I'm going to continue.
And maybe it's something where like, maybe it's a legitimate reason. And maybe they should be calling you on it. Like maybe it's, whenever you get together with this person, you end up getting blackout drunk and I don't hear from you for a day. Like maybe it's they're a bad influence and they're encouraging you to do things that you shouldn't be doing. Like maybe it's something like that. Or maybe it's this person is damaging to your mental health. This person is emotionally taxing. Like something like that. But if it's something like, well, he's hotter than me and I can't handle that. Or it's like, oh, well, he's been looking at you this way and I know you don't see it, but I can see it. It's like, well, no, how long has this person been in your life? How important is this person to you? And how willing are you to let this potentially long-term friendship go over the insecurity of someone else? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's going to be a big factor is if they can't articulate why. And maybe it could also, and I think this is another thing too, is like, especially if you're early in the dating sphere, is have those conversations early about how you make those decisions on whether or not that's a deal breaker kind of a situation. Like, like, hey, if I come to you and I say, hey, I need you to stop talking to this person because of X, Y, and Z, like, and if you can't do that, it's going to be a deal breaker for me. Like, be honest with that person going into the relationship. The last thing people need in general is that conversation not to happen, and all of a sudden you're just like, no, you can't stop talking. You can't talk to that person. Now, also the other thing too is I also think that if your partner is a female, as your girlfriend, you just do whatever they say because they're the boss.
I stand behind that on behalf of all women.
Girl power.
Yeah.
I did that a little too well.
Yeah, that was really good, Ruben. Do you have something to share?
No, but I know the comments are going to be like, why is he zesty? But hey, we want to hear from you. We do want to hear from you. So I know I've been plugging our social media a lot, but be sure to head over and comment. Send us a message if you have something that you want to say. We will definitely read the comments on the show if we get the comment. So leave the comment for us to read the comment, because then we'll read the comment in the comment response section of a future podcast about the comments.
That was a lot of comments. Goodness.
Yeah. Anything else that you wanna throw out here?
Well, I mean, speaking of leaving a comment on the show, and we'll read the comment on the show, I wanted to read one of the comments that we got.
Please read the comment.
I have to find it first. Can you fill some time while I find it?
I can fill some time. I do want to just give a quick shout out to one of our listeners, Christy. Like I mentioned last week, there are going to be random code words thrown into this podcast. And if you're able to, yes. If you're able to pick up the code word and you guess it correctly and you send it to us, I will send you a picture of, I will screenshot a photo of a Monopoly $100 bill and I will DM it back to you. Possibly.
What is the purpose of this? Why are we giving this away?
Oh, because Christy...
Who asked for this?
Nobody asked for this, but it's increased our listenership. Christy listened to the entire podcast, I think 4 times, trying to find the code word. And then messaged me asking, hey, was there a code word? And yes, there was a code word. Go back and listen to it again. Actually, this time you should watch the episode.
Okay, so I've got this comment, and this is from Miss Melody Sparks, or Sparky, as we like to call her.
Spark plugs!
So She commented on the one with the situationship,
Okay.
which was released on January 3rd. Go back and listen to it. It's about 28 minutes. She said, regardless of who is correct on the meaning of a situationship, the most concerning opinion in this episode is that Ruben doesn't care about the Oxford comma. What? And I wholeheartedly agree with her on that, Ruben. I think that I should cut you out of my life unless you decide to acknowledge the superiority of the Oxford comma. What say you?
So I believe that the Oxford comma is definitely liking this video, commenting on this video, subscribing to our podcast, and doing all the great things that podcast fans do. This has been a great week, and I think the Oxford comma would definitely approve and appreciate the endorsement that I am forcing upon it.
You are really sounding more and more like Trump the longer. This has been a great week, and I really think that the Oxford comma, it would really, China. Sorry, that just
What
slipped
happened
out.
to the Harvard comma in the Princeton?
Nobody talks about the Yale comma. Nobody talks about the. I can't think of another school.
Nobody really talks about the, Fullerton Community College, apostrophe, and the rules regarding, the local school district and how big and beautiful the explanation point is. Explanation
And
point?
everybody's leaving out the Cal State Fullerton comma. Nobody's talking about that. Is it racist, they say? I don't know.
Somebody said it was racist to include the Oxford comma. These are
I've been
terrible.
watching-
These are terrible
It's so
Trumps.
bad. It's so bad. I've watched more Trump today than I have
God.
in the last 8 years, just because
I'm
I
sorry.
wanted to see what happened at the inauguration, and so that's where I'm like, oh, this is a good impression. Yay!
I kept waiting for him to say China.
I know.
Instead, we got manufacture.
Oh yeah, he said manufacture, and I was like, what the hell is that?
Oh, what a random way to end the podcast.
man.
Again, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Again, go to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/multimedia mouth. We're having a street taco episode, ironically about coffee. And
We are?
more importantly, yeah, we've already recorded it.
Oh,
It's my
we
review
are.
of
Yes.
your review. Yes. Yes. Hey, you really need to see a doctor about your concussions because I think it's starting to get out of hand. Just
I
complete
just started
side
a
note
new
between you and I.
medication. We'll talk about it on the next episode.
Yeah, find out what medication Moxy is taking for her foot fungi.
What? Ew. No.